What I do think is fascinating is how much has changed in the landscape of the sport. Some of it still remains the same. There's still the Cinderella stories. And when we think of stories of our past, it's interesting. There's some of the greatest games or potential upsets or whatever weren't actually upsets, didn't actually happen. Like Princeton, Georgetown still won the game. Right? Georgetown won the game. And then, of course, we started to see more and more upsets throughout our childhood, into our adulthood. And what I thought would never happen, I truly believed in covering it, you would never see a 16 beat a 1. And the logic behind it was this. When they started the field of 64, there were like, I don't think there were 200 Division I teams. Now there are 364. Okay, 364. So if the top are the top four, and they used to be competing against 200, 225, 230, and now they're competing against 300, one would think the disparity was even greater. But as luck would have it, an injury happened with DeAndre Hunter at Virginia, and an upset of all upsets took place with UMBC. And then I thought, well, we'll never have that again, only to have it happen again. But amateurism is gone. I don't want to call this professional basketball because though I get paid a salary to coach my team, to run my program, to make sure my kids go to class, graduate, are academically eligible, stay out of trouble, run practice, manage a whole basketball program. And look, college basketball players do receive compensation above that of a scholarship, above that of a grant and aid. Let's not kid ourselves. This is not professional, right? If it was professional, you wouldn't believe the stories that take place don't happen in a professional world. You also don't get a chance to just leave one job with a contract and not have a buyout and not have a non-compete clause going from job to job to job to job to job. So it's a mix of what we used to have, mix in education, which does get pushed to the wayside by so many people. And then you kind of morph professional basketball and AAU basketball, and there you go. But here's what I wish would happen. It's not going to happen. But like Wofford takes on Tennessee. And there's some unique things that college basketball people know that I'm going to teach you here before the games tip off. I had a college basketball coach before I took the job tell me like, hey, ever notice handshake lines are a lot longer than they used to be? Well, what's that mean? Well, when Omaha takes on St. John's and Omaha's best player goes for 25 and 10 and they lose and he shakes hands with Rick Pitino or one of the assistant coaches, they go, is that your mom over there? Hey, Mom, how are you? Right? It doesn't mean there's poaching actually taking place, but it doesn't mean that it's not taking place. Right? Like literally mid-major teams playing against high-major teams, it's an active tryout. I kid you not. But what I'd love to have happen is when Wofford takes on Tennessee, them to flash up the sum total of the salaries of the players of each team. That would be amazing. Tennessee's coached by Rick Barnes. He's a friend. I think Rick's a great dude. We were rivals. He coached at Texas when I was in college, and I had heard he was a great dude, and he's even better than that. I do expect them to win this game. And Wofford has a big guy who shoots the ball underhanded, which if you watch me play in college, people did encourage me to try, so I'm always fascinated by it. But what I would love is if it comes down the stretch and they're under 4 minutes and say Spiro Ditas is calling the game, Tennessee with a $4.2 million payroll, take it on Wofford with a $135,000 payroll. It would make you want to talk about David and Goliath, that's what you have. It's like equal punishments, right? If you're bad, It's hard to raise money to get players to get good. And even on bad teams, guys that go and put up their numbers, well, they go and they want to go somewhere else and fool somebody else and go get paid. And if you're good at the mid-major level, you're going to lose all your players because people are like, man, they're good. Let's take them. That's how it actually works. Nonetheless, we still have a bracket, and now the actual bracket games begin. But I do think that, and I said this on my show, and I said it just so you know, I believe in congruent arguments. I thought the mistake of the college football playoff committee was balanced out by the NCAA basketball committee. What do I mean by that? It doesn't mean that every team that spent money is better than teams that don't spend money. Doesn't mean that. But the SEC has spent a whole hell of a lot more money than everybody else. And it's not just with the players, with the facilities, with the support staff, with the head coaches. It's all of it. All of it. And so it's not just about your specific team, but their path to success and their path to a record, right? The flaw in the argument for SMU, which spent a bunch of money to get into the ACC and then to field their team, or Indiana that spent a ton of money and had a soft schedule but beat up on the Big Ten, is not to say, hey, well, we spent money and look, we got this huge payroll. Indiana, what was like a $15 million payroll, which was a big, big amount. The difference is in the SEC in both football and basketball, every team you play in basketball has a $2 to $4 or $5 million payroll. Whereas when you're in the ACC, for example, they have teams with $3 and $4 million payrolls, but they have teams that are about $1 million. And there's just a difference. And when you have a payroll that's $1 million or whatever, and you go all in on one or two players, and all of a sudden one of those guys gets hurt, or one of those guys isn't as good as the billing, or maybe hasn't been able to level up to the ACC, now all of a sudden you don't have the depth to contend on a daily basis in your conference, even though you're better than most of the other teams because, again, you have $1 million payroll. Am I making sense? So I still love the tournament. I grew up watching it. I can quote chapter and verse all of the different upsets. The moment that changed my existence as a basketball player wanting to do it happened about 30 minutes where I'm broadcasting from Doug Gottlieb in for Colin. This is heard on Fox Sports Radio and the iHeartRadio app. We're broadcasting from Sherman Oaks, California at Long Beach Arena, where my dad for 3 years was an assistant coach under the great Tex Winter at Long Beach Arena in, was it 1990? I think it was 1990. Might have been 91. The first game after Hank Gathers had passed away, Loyola Marymount took on New Mexico State. And I'll never forget it. I'd watched the semifinals when Hank went down. I had known both of those guys from the Pump basketball camp where I was a camper, and those guys played pickup ball at CSUN, Cal State Northridge, where we stayed at night. And they were godlike figures. And when Hank died, it was soul crushing to somebody who idolized him and thought, he looked like a Greek god. I watched them play, and they came out in their, and everything was adorned in maroon uniforms with 44s everywhere. And when I saw Bo Kimball dribble 3 times with his right hand and switch it and shoot to his left hand to copy his fallen friend and teammate, who, kind of like the kid from Wofford, switched to shooting free throws left-handed because he was so bad at shooting them right-handed. And then he made the free throw, and there wasn't a dry eye in the place. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to play in it. I want to cover it. I want to coach it. So that emotion still exists, but let's not kid ourselves. We're in a weird place where, like, literally Tennessee has 40. I would guess at minimum 30 times greater salaries than that of Wofford tonight. 30 times. I'll check my math during the break. That's what I'll do. But I think I got that right. I may have over-exaggerated, but I think I got it right. Right? If you're somewhere like $4 million and they're somewhere in the, 150 to 200, what is that ratio? You guys work that out.